This is just part of a larger video tribute to Gene Hackman, and the full tribute episode will be on the Under the Radar YouTube channel very soon. Enjoy! Hey, I'm Randy Younger, New York City's go-to film enthusiast. Every week I dive deep into the world of cinema with special guests from the New York City film scene. Whether I'm interviewing industry insiders or comparing the latest releases, there's always something for every movie lover. Join me as I explore the magic of film and discover what makes these movies unforgettable. Hey guys, I'm Randy Younger, and this is Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together one frame at a time. And as you can see, we have a very stacked group of film critic guests today. We are here for one main reason, and it is basically to celebrate the life and career of the great actor Gene Hackman, who left us about a month ago. And I wanted to prepare this episode. I know we're a little late, but better late than never. And, I just wanted to go through some of his greatest hits, so to speak, some of his classic films over the 4-decade career that he had. He was an actor's actor. He was respected throughout the entertainment community. He could play a hero, a villain, everything in between. And he never phoned it in. He always gave a strong performance in everything. If it was from something like The French Connection all the way to Welcome to Mooseport, he always gave it his all. And he was really just a really special actor. And I had a great time the past couple weeks just revisiting some of his classics and discovering some of his smaller gems, which we're all going to discuss today. And just real quick before we go, up his filmography from 1961 to 2004. Just want to go around and get some, first impressions, overall impressions of Gene, what you thought about his career and how he impacted you. So, Tyler, I'll start with you. If you want to start, you're right here.
Well,
By the way, Tyler Michael, Ernest Salick, we got Brian Smith, and we got through Zoom, we've got Erica A, and of course, Rachel Colbin, Eric Godfrey. So, welcome to the show, guys.
well, thing about Gene Hackman that I've always admired about him as an actor is you mentioned this in the intro, but I'll say this anyway. He's a very versatile actor. He can do any genre. He can be dramatic. He can be hilarious. He can be humble. He could be the sickest person you've ever seen on film. He could be comical. He could be campy. He could be just dead serious. He is just an amazing actor through and through. And quite frankly, I've taken him for granted because I know he's an amazing actor, but I never sat down and thought about how amazing he is, how well-rounded he is as an actor, which I feel is very difficult for most actors to do.
I didn't realize his greatness till sadly until he passed, and it just really amplified his greatness. And it wanted me to check out everything. It still makes me want to check out everything he's done. And every performance is always a strong, well-rounded performance. So yeah. Ernest, how about you? First impressions?
Man, you know what? My first encounter with Gene Hackman is easy. I would say Superman. As a child, you see Gene Hackman and he's Lex Luthor and he's like Superman's enemy. And then you see him in other movies growing up, and you're like, you just know him as Lex Luthor, and then you come to know him as so much more. And it's like how Tyler said, he has incredible range and personability about him. And even like when he does a lot of those like patriotic, like let's say Army or Navy roles, like we'll talk about Crimson Tide later.
Yes.
He has like this stern righteousness about him, stern but righteous at the same time. He's very likable, and I think one of his strengths was that he was always very down to earth, as both a human being and as actor.
Very authoritative and also very down to earth. I agree with you. So you could play an everyman, an average Joe, or a submarine commander, or a president, a politician.
Certainly.
It was crazy. His range was really impressive, I must say.
Which I want to just add one thing personally. The first time I ever recognized Gene Hackman, when I didn't even know it was him, was in Young Frankenstein when he played the blind hermit.
Right.
To this day, I still can't believe that's him. He plays it so perfectly. It's a great reimagining of the original Blind Hermit from Bride of Frankenstein. And then when I saw him as Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, I just could not put two and two together.
I know.
He's an incredible actor.
He was so versatile, and his filmography is reflective of that talent. Brian, how about yourself? Your overall impression of Gene?
Yeah, overall impression, I agree with you guys in terms of the versatility and just every role. He just brings a grounded nature to his character. I mean, especially looking at when you're talking about the Superman movies, Superman 1 and 2, especially, when there's all this sort of fantastical stuff going around, he's sort of like the everyman. He's the villain, but he's the everyman, sort of relatable audience surrogate, who's like sort of commenting and snarkily making little, comments that the audience might be thinking about while things are happening. So you're always sort of plugged into him as an actor, and just his range, it's just really just impressive. You just put his name Hackman on a poster and know who you're talking about. He's in that Nicholson group, but he's not. It's not like where you're watching a Gene Hackman movie or like a Nicholson movie where you think, oh yeah, that's Jack Nicholson playing a role. This is Gene Hackman embodying that character that he's playing and just doing a great job. So.
And he came about, excuse me, in the 60s. He made it big with Bonnie and Clyde, 1967, which is basically the start of the new Hollywood. And he was in this amazing group of great actors at the time. You had Nicholson, Dustin Hoffman, Robert Duvall. They were kind of like the bad boys of Hollywood at that time.
Yeah, and if I can jump in real quick, you bring up Dustin Hoffman, and of course, the story about the fact that they both met each other, that they met working at the Pasadena Playhouse. When they were in acting school, and the fact that Gene Hackman was actually expelled. I think Dustin Hoffman was as well for not having talent. So I believe that they moved out to New York actually, and were still pursuing acting, which really tells you, I mean, like considering that all of you have said versatile and just talked about how amazing of an actor he is, it's like just because one place tells you no or says that you don't have talent doesn't mean that's true. So
perseverance. And I think they were voted by their classmates and the teachers as least likely to succeid.
Correct.
Wow. Exactly.
and then they have like 5 Oscars between the two of them.
How's that karma?
Yeah, it's crazy. Erica, overall impressions of Gene?
Well, I mean, I think that I look at him starting out in my own lifetime, and yet he had such a long career, like you said, through the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and through the 90s until the 2000s when he had to retire. But there were just so many things from little roles to major starring roles to co-starring roles that were just not quite recognizable, but more something that you don't recognize him. And that's what makes it so interesting. That he can just become the role.
Yeah.
And that was something he was good at, in my opinion.
Yeah. A true actor. And I mean, he was recognizable in a lot of his roles.
Sure.
I was going to say about 50-50, but sometimes he can just fade into the role.
Right.
And you only see the character of the story.
Yeah.
It was weird because he always looked the same, but his characters were always very different. And like we mentioned that he can do a good guy and a bad guy almost seamlessly. And we're going to talk about a couple of his villainous roles, especially from the 90s, which was great. Because I think the older he got, the more villainous he kind of got. But still an extremely likable guy. I wish I never got to meet him or interview him. That would have been incredible. But
even though his name is Hackman, he was no hack.
That's true.
Oh yeah,
nicely
100%.
put. Nicely put.
Good point.
So, all right. So maybe we should start with the filmography here, and it's a lot. I think it's like over 100 entries in his IMDb page. But I just wanted to do the greatest hits, so to speak.
Amen.
And I had a really good time going back and watching some of these movies. A lot of them I've never even heard of, and I'm so glad I got to find out about them. And I basically assigned all of you guys just one movie to talk about. And as we go up the list up until 2004, your assigned film will come up and we're going to just talk about it all.
Got you.
But I wanted to start off with 1961. He did a movie called Mad Dog Cole, which was not very good, I must say. He had a very, very small part. It was like a 5-minute scene. He plays a policeman. And this movie is basically the rise and fall of a crime boss by the name of Mad Dog Cole, and he plays the police officer in one scene. It wasn't really worth my time. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, But
Mhm.
yeah, he didn't have any lines in that. But I was still curious to see him in that. He was like 30 years old. It was very interesting. He looks the
Wow.
same as he does as he did like in the 90s.
Mhm.
So it's very funny. Um, we're gonna fast forward so what 3 years to 1964. He did a movie called Lilith, and this was a strange movie starring Warren Beatty as a young man who takes a job at a psychiatric hospital, and basically he runs into an old flame, and she is now married to Gene Hackman's character, who also has a small part, but his very first speaking part. And it was interesting to see him in that. He kind of took on this like Southern accent,
Mhm.
similar to what he would have in Bonnie and Clyde.
Mm.
And yeah, so it was good to finally hear Gene Hackman finally speak in a movie that's called Lilith. You really don't have to waste your time with that one either. Just letting you know.
We all have to start somewhere.
Well,
Absolutely.
exactly. Thank you.
Unless if you're a diehard Gene Hackman fan,
Exactly.
of course.
Yeah, and it seems like it was an unremarkable movie that still had a lot of remarkable talent in it. Because
Yeah.
you also have Peter Fonda, who is like Hollywood legend again, and Jessica Walter, who everyone now knows her as the mother from Arrested Development. So
And Archer.
Yeah. Very, very
Feel
good
good.
cast, but a strange film. Not great.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was called Lilith from 1964. I'm just going up the list here. He around this time he did a lot of TV, which is understandable. He actually started in theater, like Rachel said. He was in acting school, so that basically evolved into some theater work and then some TV work, and then finally, for purposes of this show, film. And yes, so Lilith, and then he did a couple of movies throughout the 60s, which I did not get a chance to see. But 1967, you've got Bonnie and Clyde,
Yeah.
classic movie.
Mhm.
Like I said, the official start of the new Hollywood into the 60s and 70s. I believe it was based on a true story.
It is.
It is, sorry, it is.
Bonnie and Clyde,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that famous rogue duo.
Yes,
But
yes.
they were very popular during their time period in the tabloids and the papers.
Okay.
Oddly so, because they
Yeah.
were going around murdering.
Criminals.
Yeah, they
And
were
still.
they were robbing banks and killing everybody.
Right. Yeah.
And I think Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway were fantastic. They're iconic in this movie.
Mhm.
Gene played Warren Beatty's older brother, who was perfectly cast. He loved him so much in Lilith, he decided to put him in Bonnie and Clyde. And this was actually Gene's first Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor.
Oh.
Yes, his first Oscar nomination. So he didn't win for this, but he would win later on, very soon, a couple years later. And yeah, but Bonnie and Clyde's a classic, I must say. You guys fans of the film?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it was just so gritty and raw.
And it was also a metaphor for 60s rebellion at the time. That's what the film also was a demonstration of.
Oh yeah, good point.
That makes sense. It's one way to interpret everyone's fascination with them at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But I also like how they didn't try to heroize them at all.
No,
Each
definitely
of
not.
them had their own faults and complications to them.
Yeah.
And that's what made the movie compelling.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
They were flawed but relatable.
Exactly.
Right. They're
I
real
agree.
people. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good point. But
I
yeah.
will say that
And it also saved gangster movies.
Okay.
Oh,
Like it re-envisioned gangster movies
Right.
at this point, because at this time gangster movies were dying. Then this film comes out with its violence, its relevance to modern times, and yeah, without Bonnie and Clyde, we wouldn't probably have Godfather or films like that down
okay.
the
So it
line.
revitalized the genre.
Yes, it did.
I didn't even know that.
The crime thrill.
It's
thrill.
important one. It's really important in gangster
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
And even well, let's just say one of the most gruesome killings in Bonnie and Clyde was also replicated in The Godfather in a certain
yeah.
toll booth scene. So
Right, right.
it definitely has a strong influence on gangster
I know which
films.
one you're talking about.
And the direction is fantastic too. Arthur
100%.
Penn, I believe it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, Bonnie and Clyde is just 1967. That was a seminal year for film, I must say. And this movie was the introduction into something great, a new era. So after Bonnie and Clyde, Gene went on to do some more TV, it looks like. He did a TV movie, looks like he did maybe some small parts here and there. Marooned, which was an astronaut thriller, where it's kind of like an early version of like Apollo 13, I guess. Gene Hackman plays an astronaut in that. Oh, here's a good one. I don't know if you guys saw I Never Sang for My Father.
Never
No,
heard
I
of it.
haven't, unfortunately.
Hackman's second Oscar nomination, this time for Best Leading Actor.
Okay.
This movie is fantastic. It's a family drama. Basically, his father is very stern, very disapproving, grumpy old man who
Okay.
he doesn't approve of Gene Hackman's lifestyle, his career choices. And Hackman's character is basically trying desperately to communicate with this man who doesn't seem like he wants to communicate at all.
I got you.
And it just feels so realistic, and like you can act like these people can leap off the screen. They just it's just a really strong representation of the father-son dynamic. And I think he should have won for this. I'm not sure of the other competition at the Oscars that year, but this was.
I saw an actor studio clip of him talking about that he lost his father left when he was very young.
Yeah.
Like his last image of him was just him waving like casually, and then
So it's very reflective of his real life.
He talks about how he uses that in his art, and yeah, really interesting. I missed the actor studio. Where is that show?
James Lipton.
Yeah,
That was a good interview.
that was a really good
with Hackman, yeah.
because he took a moment, but yeah, you could see it still fuels him. It still fuels him.
And you can check out that interview with Hackman at the Actors Studio. That's on YouTube. Among many other interviews with Hackman, they're all on YouTube throughout the years, throughout the decades, talking about his craft and how he taps into emotion in his real life. But I Never Sang for My Father, worth checking out.
Okay.
It's
All
a wonderful family drama. It was
Like the sound of it.
it was very well made.
So funny thing about I Never Sang for My Father, I've never seen the movie. However, I have seen the episode of Boy Meets World that steals the title I Never Sang for Your Father, which again, like it's funny that it's like, of course, the target audience for that type of joke, a bunch of preteen kids watching the Disney Channel.
Interesting.
Well, no TGIF.
Does it try to like also copy the plot of the movie in that episode?
It does?
I would say not really.
So they went all the way with
I
it.
think I see a few like aspects of it that it like parodies and it takes inspiration from it a little.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah. It's
But
very
on a small level. It's not like verbatim.
Yeah.
right. It's imitatable. That's for sure.
Okay.
Now that I think of it. But yeah, so that was 1970. Good times, good years, good time for Hackman there. Okay, so he did some more small parts, it looks like. And then 1971, we have our first assigned film for Mr. Tyler Michael here, and that is The French Connection, 1971. Tyler, take it away.
Well, The French Connection, when I think of Gene Hackman movies, this is the film that instantly leaps into my mind. It's the film that I think is Gene Hackman's best film. And the reason for that is it's not only because he received an Oscar for Best Actor, but he well deserved it. Now, the film, in short, to put a very long and complicated plot simply and keeping spoilers to a minimum, it's about two narcotics police detectives, one played by Hackman and the other one played by Roy Scheider. And they stumble upon a drug smuggling scheme that connects to France. And what fascinates me about the film is, well, along with Gene Hackman's casting, is Gene Hackman was originally not going to be this role. He was not one of the first choices. He was one of the last choices. Originally, they wanted to have Paul Newman or Jackie Gleason in the role of Popeye Doyle, which I can see in certain respects, but Gene Hackman just embodies the role. He is just perfect for this role because he gives a character that is not your typical good cop that you would see in many films. In fact, I like that there's a morally ambiguous area to all these characters. Like Gene Hackman, for instance, he is a cop. He obviously wants to break this drug racket, but at the same time, he uses his badge to get laid. He says racial slurs. He is very stubborn. He's very self-righteous. He is not exactly a role model character. And meanwhile, the criminals, which I find also fascinating, who are in charge of all this, yes, they're bringing harm into the city, but they're also very sophisticated and actually are very friendly towards one another, which is very rare. Like, this is pre-Godfather we're looking at here. Like, they're still horrible people, but I like that the director just observes them rather than just painting them as clear-cut good guys and bad guys, which I feel is what makes that film stand out. Not only that, the film itself has a wonderful mix of new Hollywood violence, neo-noir, French New Wave with its shaky cam, its editing, and above all, its indie documentary style.
Oh yeah.
Because especially when you watch New York, because it has that documentary-like feel of the 70s. You really feel like that this is an accurate depiction of New York. And what the film is especially known for is the car chase.
Oh yes.
The car chase is one of the most exhilarating sequences I've ever seen. It's definitely one of the top 10 best car chases of all time, if not the best car chase of all time. And pretty much what you get out of it is it's just Gene Hackman chasing after a guy who's on a train, who takes control of the train, and all sorts of obstacles head into his way. And you're looking at both different perspectives of what's going on the train and what's going on with Gene Hackman as he steals a car and tries to chase after the criminal. It's just an amazing movie through and through. And fun fact, some of the things you'll see in the car crash and the film in general, some of them were actually accidents that made it into the film, particularly with the car chase. When you see a car actually get damaged, that just comes right out of nowhere, that actually happened. There was an actual accident, and the guy got reimbursed for it. And the engineer of the train, the actor didn't show up for work. That is the actual engineer who is not an actor, and he gives a performance that would have fooled me big time. I would have no idea he was an actual engineer.
Wow.
So
Didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's the Maverick director behind that?
That's William Friedkin. He did a fantastic
The same
job.
one who would later bring
Yeah,
us The
definitely.
Exorcist.
That's right.
He's a pioneer.
Oh yeah.
And here's
Brilliant.
another pioneer thing about the film that I should also mention. This is also the first R-rated film to win Best Picture. Now, I know some of you are thinking about, well, what about Midnight Cowboy? Midnight Cowboy was rated X. French Connection was rated R.
Okay.
And
interesting.
again, Hackman, Roy Scheider, they just kill it along with the rest of the cast. It's visually stunning. It's slow, but also engaging and gives us the action at the right points. It shows the tedious nature of this job in a very compelling way. It has all kinds of characters that the film loves to observe, where you're making your minds on their morality. It's just an all-time amazing film.
And
Agreed.
the police work between Popeye Doyle and his partner, played by Roy, there's a lot of gray area.
Exactly.
You know, it kind of reminds me of a movie that would come many decades after, but Training Day. How police officers they kind of bend the law, even break the law to just get their man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's what makes this movie so great. It's like morally ambiguous amongst the main characters. The direction's fantastic. I can't believe they considered Jack Gleason for this.
Well, actually, I guess if I'm going to jump in there, I think the reason why is because I could see why for Popeye, for why they'd want to go with a more known somebody like that is because, as you've all highlighted, Popeye is a very complicated character. He's a very corrupt cop, but trying to do the right thing, and corrupt in terms of just abuse of power. But at the end, but he finds himself involved in trying to like finally, hey, no, I got to do the right thing here. And so when you have, so if you're going to have somebody who does so much bad stuff, but you still have to root for him, it's a hard thing to do, bringing up Training Day. That's why you need Denzel. It's hard to have somebody that charismatic doing that bad of things and still be like, hey, you know what? I like that guy. And so at that point, Gene Hackman kind of really wasn't a proven quantity. Right. And so I could see where, Newman, you knew what you were getting. Gleason, you knew what you were getting. So you could say, hey, you could get the charisma, you get the star power to say, hey, even though he's doing terrible things, I'm still rooting for him to catch the bad guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I could see that's where the fear of Hackman that ultimately proved them all wrong, because as I completely agree, Papa Doyle is, I do think Gene Hackman's best role. I do think French Connection is his best movie. I could see why there was some skepticism around casting him for that role.
I feel like this film is what really proved his chops as a leading actor.
Yeah.
Without this film, I don't think Gene Hackman would have as much of a career. This
Agreed.
is a film that really cemented him.
Yep.
And if I were to think of anybody else that could have played Popeye Doyle, who was considered, I just couldn't think of him at the moment, Peter Boyle.
Okay.
A bit of irony there.
When seeing him in a film like Joe, I could definitely see him pulling off this role as well. But
Interesting.
Gene Hackman is Popeye Doyle.
Yeah.
He is irreplaceable, and I bet Ed O'Neill can't even replace
I
him
know
in the TV.
I didn't know until like 20 minutes before we recorded that there was a TV movie in 1986 called Popeye Doyle,
Mhm.
starring Ed
Ed
O'Neill.
yeah.
What the hell?
They were trying to Gene Hackman's charisma.
I could see it, but it's kind of an insult to Hackman.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Oh, yeah.
But I also because the car chase scene, of course. I mean, what's there not to say? But I do love the fact that the French Connection is most famous for a car chase scene that really only involves one car.
Right.
It's like the only car chase but it's about a movie about obsession. The car chase, it's like in the context of that, that's why that chase is so good, because you are seeing Doyle obsessively chasing his assassin, this guy, and just willing to literally put all of New York at risk of being under his tires just to catch this guy.
I
And
love it.
it's so iconic. I still think of it whenever
He
I'm
knows
in a
a cop.
cab.
You
under
do?
an elevator.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
you get up,
underneath
you get up
the
and
L
think-
train.
Yeah.
The 7.
I always think about it.
Same.
That's hilarious.
Well, that's why maybe it was inducted into the Library of Congress for
Oh.
preservation. Seen
No,
as-
French Connection is one of the best. There's no question.
Amazing film.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
A not so amazing film, however, was French Connection 2, which came out
Search for more money.
4
20
years.
years later.
I think it came out 4 years after the original, and they
Yeah.
brought back Hackman. They probably paid him a lot of money to do it, and it's not a terrible movie, but it's just nowhere near as good as the original. And there's just like this weird scene where he basically he goes to I guess we could do spoilers, but basically the bad guys, they've captured Popeye. And they put him in this like weird room where they're trying to get him hooked on heroin as a form of torture. And those are actually some really good scenes. And of course, Hackman was fantastic, playing a guy who's going through withdrawal. He's like, he wants another hit of heroin or whatever. And but yeah, the movie overall was completely unnecessary, I'd say. And they should have just kept French Connection, the original, the way it is. No sequels, no TV movies. Eventually, they're probably going to remake it, reboot it with someone, probably Ryan Gosling. I don't know.
Ed
And
O'Neill.
make him less of an interesting character.
Yes, much less. But yeah, French Connection, classic.
Amen.
Best picture, best actor. I think it won best director for Friedkin as well. And yeah, it's a great film. All right, guys, moving along. So we're into the early 70s here, and it looks like he's still doing a little bit of TV. He did this movie in 1972 that I actually saw the other day called Prime Cut, which is very strange. It was recommended through a website, like the greatest Hackman performances. And he plays a villain in this one, where he plays a head of a meat packing plant, who also has a side business of like trafficking young girls, young like teenage 20-something girls, and using them for, I guess, like prostitution purposes or like weird art installation purposes. He has like naked models posing with pigs and horses. It's out there.
Yeah.
Hackman plays the guy in charge of all these young girls, and Lee Marvin plays this guy who's trying to collect a debt from Hackman. And when he goes to encounter him, all hell breaks loose. It's a strange film. I'm kind of glad I saw it, though.
It sounds like my kind of strange.
It is very strange.
As you describe it, the title suddenly sounds really gross.
Yeah. Prime Cut. Yeah, it's out there. And I recommend it if you're a Gene Hackman completist, and if you want something weird from the early 70s to check out. But that's called Prime Cut. And right after that, Hackman went on to one of his a bigger budget film, The Poseidon Adventure, which personally I have not seen. I think I've seen like bits and pieces on cable, like as a kid, but I finally watched it in its entirety. It's actually streaming now currently on Prime Video, so it is worth checking out. It's worth revisiting. And Hackman plays a reverend turned hero when this ocean liner capsizes and it flips upside down, and then there's a small group of survivors that he's basically in charge of. There's a power struggle between him and Ernest Borgnine, who's awesome in this too. You've got a great performance from Shelley Winters, who plays this distressed middle-aged woman, and a group of like 5 people led by Hackman who are just basically trying to escape this horrible, horrible situation.